Welcome to this week's edition of Leading with Confidence. My name is Confidence Seleme and I'm your host. This program is proudly powered by the William Seleme Foundation, and the foundation's mission is enabling education in Africa. This week, I'd like us to discuss a topic I've titled, Why Leaders Need to be Led. Why Leaders Need to be Led. Without all the rivers that constantly pour into it, the ocean would not be as great as it is. As leaders, we need mentors and encouragers to help us become the best versions of ourselves. Contrary to popular belief, it is not followers who need leadership the most, it is leaders. Leadership is not a destination, but a journey of continuous learning and growth. The most dangerous teacher is the one who stops learning. Such a teacher creates a ceiling for themselves and those they teach. Leaders who allow themselves to be led will continue learning and they will be equipped to lead. As a leader, you need to be equipped so that you can equip those that you lead. And if you want to be a great leader, you need to find someone great to lead you. It is a foolish stone that says to the slingshot, I do not need you. We all need somebody to catapult and help us become more effective. Effective leaders realize that no matter how much knowledge they amass, no matter how many people they have the privilege of leading, and no matter how much influence they have, they can never arrive at a place where there is no need for them to grow. Leaders who think they know it all often end up losing it all. One of the pitfalls of being a leader is that you can forget what it's like to be a follower. Your feet can get so big that they don't fit into the shoes of those that you lead. When this happens, leaders lose touch with those they lead, and when leaders lose touch, they cease to be effective. After all, how can you serve the needs of those you lead if you don't know or don't understand those needs? When a leader is led, they know and understand what it's like to follow. It gives them a dual point of view, not only a view from the front where they lead from, but a view from the back where they follow from. This dual view makes leaders better positioned to empathize with those they lead, and it further sensitizes them to the needs of those that they lead. When you are led, you know where to tread. Leadership is a journey, and on any journey, the right direction matters. You can be running well, but if it's in the wrong direction, your efforts will be futile. It's especially important for leaders to be going in the right direction because a leader's journey impacts those that they lead. Leaders who are well led will know where to tread. They will know where to go and how to behave as they conduct their leadership. One author said, a smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. Close quote. When you are led as a leader, you are better positioned to avoid making the mistakes that many other leaders have made. That's because you'll have someone guiding you along the leadership path, helping you know better so that you can do better. The right mentor isn't the one who shares only stories of their victories. They will also share with you stories of where they went wrong so that you can learn from them and not repeat those errors. When leaders are well led, their leadership will take good direction that will help them achieve their goals and mandates, direction that will help them strengthen their efforts and make them more effective as leaders. There are many types of direction that leaders need. I will in this next section zoom in on three main ones. These are moral direction, direction that matters, and strategic direction. Let's discuss moral direction. Moral direction is one of the most important aspects of leadership. Leaders without a moral compass will lead those who follow them astray. Albert Einstein said, example isn't another way to teach, it is the only way to teach. Close quote. When leaders are immoral in their conduct, those who follow them will feel free to also act immorally. When a leader has no moral boundaries, the legacy of the leadership will be one of mayhem and destruction. If, for example, a leader in government is known to be stealing money from the coffers, those they lead will look for loopholes and weaknesses in the system so that they can take advantage and also stick their hands in the cookie jar. Leadership without good moral conduct eventually crumbles to the ground. That's because such leaders lack the solid foundation that ethical leadership provides. Without that foundation, leaders are always a couple of steps away from encountering a setback in their leadership. If, for example, the leaders of an Olympic committee lack strong morals and they encourage their athletes to use banned substances, They will be found out and experience the consequences. In such cases, it's not just the leaders who suffer, but those who follow them. Whatever conduct the leader permits or encourages within their team will become the norm. Leaders need to find other leaders and mentors who adhere to good moral conduct. Then they must connect themselves to these leaders and mentors so that they can see morality modeled and learn from these good examples. We come from different backgrounds, and some leaders come from families or environments where good moral conduct wasn't modeled, and resultantly, they do not hold morality in high esteem. One of the modern African leaders who I really admire is Chief Justice Mogoeng. When he was faced with one of the toughest decisions that a man in his position would have to make, he took the moral high road, chose courage over compromise, and gave a verdict that favored the then Public Protector of South Africa, Thuli Madonsela, when she went head-to-head against the highest public office in the land. With one judgment and one display of backboned leadership, he restored hope in a justice system that seemed to be failing dismally. I had the pleasure of meeting him at a Black Management Forum gala dinner, and it was a truly wonderful experience. I also offered him a copy of my book, A Confident Approach, which he graciously accepted. He gave a captivating keynote address that evening and received a well-deserved standing ovation. Ethical leadership has been a constant theme in Chief Justice Mogoeng's speeches and in his leadership. It is at the core of every great society. When people are led by leaders who uphold great values such as integrity, courage, and justice, those people will benefit and they will grow. They will thrive and flourish as their needs will be met, and they will receive opportunities to become the best versions of themselves. Money that is meant to educate youth and uplift communities won't find its way into the pockets of greedy, unscrupulous leaders. It is leadership that stands up for what is right and speaks up for those who can't. After all, real leadership is never about the leader, but about those that the leader is mandated to serve. Ethical leadership guides us along the right path. It is leadership that strengthens and fortifies. It is salt-like leadership that not only adds good taste and flavor, it also acts as a preservative, keeping the organization, the family, and the community in good condition. Now more than ever, we need leaders who will stand up for the truth. Leaders who will listen to the people, serve the people, and empower the people. We need leaders who are not for sale. Leaders who don't sacrifice their values at the altar of compromise. Leaders who are willing to put themselves in the firing line and act as shields to protect those that need to be protected. In a time where leaders of integrity are few and far in between, and it seems that society is being led by men and women whose lives have gone dim, we need ethical leaders who will become beacons to bring illumination amid the darkness. The ethical issues of leadership speak to a leader's identity. Who are you? What do you stand for? What boundaries have you set for your life and your leadership? Ethics are at the core of a person's identity, and when the core is weak and wobbling, it can lead to the collapse of the entire structure. A manager who has a weak ethical core might not see anything wrong with using their position to get sexual favors from those they lead. Because of the weak ethical core, such a manager will eventually lose their position and their leadership. Everything we manifest externally originates from an internal place. When one eats a rotten fruit, that fruit will upset their stomach and they will vomit it out. Leadership philosophies which promote unethical behavior by leaders are like rotten fruit that eventually lead to an unhealthy leadership. But when leaders act in an ethical manner, it is good fruit which nourishes and strengthens the leader's leadership. We must then scrutinize our conduct as leaders and separate the good fruit from the rotten fruit so that our leadership may remain in a healthy state. The person whose heart has been filled with darkness will think dark thoughts. That person will speak dark things and eventually commit dark deeds. Leaders then need to make sure that they choose good influences who will help them become leaders of good ethical conduct. We have to be selective about who we allow to lead and mentor us, because the leader who leads us is the leader who influences us. If you study organizations with ethically weak executives, that culture permeates and influences the managers to act in a similarly unethical manner. An organization where, for example, the CEO is known to be a racist will follow racially biased policies which will be implemented by the leaders or managers whom that CEO is leading. Leadership expert John C. Maxwell states that leadership is about influence, nothing more, nothing less. Close quote. So as leaders, we need to examine what is being poured into our hearts and in our minds, and by whom. If we have been or are being poisoned by leadership ideologies that are not ethically sound, we must make a conscious decision to discard those ideologies and opt for ideologies which support ethical conduct. If we have been taught by a predecessor that it's okay to abuse a leadership position for personal gain, or that it's okay to abuse subordinates, then we must make a choice to choose a different route so that our leadership may end up in a better place. If your predecessors taught you that being a leader means you are superior to others and that others exist to serve you, then you must seriously relook that disposition. If you are a man and your father taught you that it's normal to hit your wife, then you must shun that behavior because it's not ethical leadership. We don't always get to choose who leads us, but we can choose who we allow to influence us. And as leaders, we must seek out leaders who are of sound character and allow ourselves to be led in an ethically sound manner so that we may learn and grow and become better leaders. Yes, that which is poured into a glass will be what that glass shall be full of. If what we have been taught is wrong, we must unlearn those things by learning new and better things. If you pour fresh water into a glass full of sand, the water will begin flooding the sand out. Now, let's discuss direction that matters. Leaders exist to make a positive impact in the world. That impact may be to just a few individuals or to entire nations. The size of the crowd isn't what is most important. It's the kind of impact that a leader makes that's important. Leadership is always connected to legacy. Leaders should not lead to impact just the present generation. We should lead with the future in mind, always interrogating the effect that our leadership will have on those who will come after us. Will our leadership lay strong foundations so that those who follow can have something solid to build upon? Will it create opportunities for the next generation? Will it inspire those we lead currently to discover their own potential and develop their own leadership capacity? In the leadership race, leaders need to make sure that the destination is worth the journey. At the end of it all, you have to know that your leadership mattered. It's sad for a leader to come to the end of their leadership only to discover that what they were chasing wasn't worth their effort or their leadership talent. Great leaders should not waste their talent on mediocre goals and visions. The life of a leader is measured by the kind of impact they made with the resources available to them. Those resources include innate resources such as their potential skills and capabilities, as well as acquired resources such as wealth, influence, and connections. It is said that to whom much is given, much is expected. As leaders, we must ask ourselves, given my available resources, is what I'm doing the best I can do? Leaders who lead below their potential hamper the growth of those they lead. They live life with a low sense of fulfillment because when you know you have more to offer than what you're currently offering, it pains your heart. Such a feeling should not discourage leaders, but rather encourage them to seek their full potential so that they can maximize their impact. The challenge then becomes finding the right leadership direction, the direction that will make a positive impact, the direction that will matter. This is the direction that will energize you to lead with gusto and will inspire those you lead to follow you with purpose and intentionality. When those you lead recognize your passion for the vision and your enthusiasm for where you're going, they will develop a greater sense of passion and confidence. Finding direction that matters is a matter of finding inspiration. What inspires you as a leader? Who inspires you as a leader? I remember watching a video of the late Dr. Myles Munroe as he spoke about one of his leadership heroes, the late Nelson Mandela. The video was of Dr. Munroe speaking in 2013 at an event held in honor of Mandela just after he passed on. In the video, he speaks of the first time he met Mandela when he was invited by the former statesman as one of several leaders who would provide advice and guidance on a way forward for South Africa after the collapse of apartheid. He tells of how when he shook Mandela's hand, he couldn't hide the look of surprise on his face as he noticed how rough the former president's hands were. Later that evening, Mandela came to him and asked if he was alright. Dr. Munroe replied that yes, indeed he was alright. But Mandela had noticed the earlier look of surprise when they'd shaken hands. Mandela then proceeded to ask him, "You're wondering why my hands are so rough, aren't you?" "Yes, Mr. Mandela," Dr. Myles reluctantly replied. Nelson Mandela then proceeded to tell him and others at the meeting about the hard labor on Robben Island, where he and other prisoners had to work on the lime quarry for hours upon hours daily, using inferior tools that scabbed their hands and made them extremely hard. "Rough hands are the price of fighting for your freedom," Mandela said to them. Dr. Monroe mentioned in the video that he was so inspired that evening, he wept and cried to God to give him rough hands. He found inspiration that fueled his vigor to make a positive impact on the world. Do the leaders you follow inspire you towards a direction that matters? As a leader, you need to be led by people who cultivate a greater sense of destiny and purpose within you. This will give your leadership greater depth and significance. Without this inspiration, your leadership may end up being relegated to the shallow waters of mediocrity. Find your cause in life and you'll find your course in life. As leaders, we need to find a cause that we are so passionate about that we will be driven to accomplish it. The world has many problems, and true leaders need to emerge so that they can become solutions to these problems. We need to develop the leadership capacity within ourselves so that we begin seeing ourselves as capable of solving these problems. There are people who need our skills and our expertise, our ideas, and our resources as well, so that they can climb out of obscurity, climb out of poverty, out of addiction, and other social ills. When we find that cause and dedicate ourselves to making a positive impact in that particular area, then our leadership will matter. It will matter beyond the organization's profit margins. It will profit humanity. As the former US President Barack Obama said, focusing your life solely on making a buck shows a certain poverty of ambition. It asks too little of yourself, because it's only when you hitch your wagon to something larger than yourself that you realize your true potential. Close quote. Now, let's discuss strategic direction. If moral direction speaks to issues of ethics and identity, the who I am of leadership, and direction that matters speaks to where am I going, then strategic direction speaks to how do I get there. Every leader needs a strategy of how to accomplish their set goals and vision. The Online Business Dictionary defines strategy as a method or plan chosen to bring about a desired future, such as achievement of a goal or solution to a problem. The art and science of planning and marshalling resources for their most efficient and effective use. The term is derived from the Greek word generalship, or leading an army. Close quote. Looking at this definition, we can deduct a number of things. Firstly, strategy speaks to the method, systems, tactics, process and planning aspects of leadership. A famous quote by Benjamin Franklin states that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Close quote. This statement tells us that those without strategy have little chance of succeeding in their endeavors. It is especially important for leaders to be strategic in their thinking. You may be a corporate leader looking to take your organization to the next level. Or perhaps you are a community leader tackling challenges issues within your designated area. You could be a teenager with your whole life ahead of you, or maybe you are a parent who'd like to raise their children to become successful people who make a meaningful contribution to society. Whatever your particular leadership role may be, you need strategic direction if you are to become successful. The second part of the definition states that a strategy is a plan. The second part of the definition states that strategy is a plan chosen. When embarking on a journey, there are different routes you can take in order to reach your desired destination. Not only that, you also have choices in terms of transport mode. For example, you can walk, you can ride a bike, you can travel by car, by train, or by plane. Indeed, there are many ways to skin a cat, but which way is the best? The challenge of choice is one that leaders face on a regular basis, and it's one of the aspects of leadership that separates good leadership from mediocre leadership. The quality of leadership is measured by the quality of the decisions that a leader makes. The multiplicity of options is a blessing that can sometimes feel like a curse. Each possible route has its own pros and cons. Leaders must assess the associated pros and cons of a particular route and decide on the best way forward. If the leadership decides that we are going to get there by walking, examples of the pros to take into consideration are: it's extremely cheap, it's good exercise, it's very experiential in that you notice details along the path that you may miss with any other transport mode, and you also get time to take in the scenery along the particular route. The cons of choosing to walk are that it is slow, it is tiring, and it leaves you vulnerable to natural elements such as heat, rain, wind, and dust. The pros of choosing to use a car or aeroplane include greater speed as it's faster than walking or riding a bike. It's a lot more comfortable and not as tiring as the aforementioned modes, but it's more costly. When choosing a strategy, you must take into consideration the particular goal you want to achieve, the speed at which you want to achieve it, and the resources you have available at your disposal. Strategy is integral to leadership. As also stated in the definition, the word strategy is derived from the Greek word generalship or leading an army. Leadership that lacks strategic direction is a limping leadership that will not be effective. Providing strategic direction is one of the most important functions of a leader, and this is true particularly in the corporate sector. But it applies even in homes, in the public sector, civic society, and so forth. It is thus very important for leaders to seek out leaders who are proficient strategists so that they can learn from them the art and science that is strategy formulation, and by so doing, become proficient strategists as well. Well, we've come to the end of this week's episode of Leading with Confidence. Thank you for tuning in. Cheers.